What's up, YouTubers? So it's like Thursday morning, I don't know, 1 or 2 in the morning, and I've been working night shift lately, and I thought, well, what am I going to do at this time of the night? I don't really got a lot going on, as you can imagine. Most people are sleeping right now, except for me. So I thought, well, why not shoot a little video that a lot of us with our home hobby welders can have a little fun making something. So since it's almost spring, or well, it's coming up, at least you go to like the local stores, they already got all their camping stuff out and barbecuing gear and all of that. So spring's coming, it's just not quite here yet. Why not make a little flower? And to make it more manly, we'll call it the Flux core flower. So what we're gonna do is weld up a little flower with flux core wire. Now this would be a great do-it-yourself project for you home gamers out there with the titanium 125 Harbor Freights, or really any flux core welder will do this. And it could also, if you have a stick welder and it'll go low enough in amperage that you can weld with 1/16 rods, you could also do this with that. And of course TIG. You could even oxyacetylene weld this. So really very approachable project. And pretty much any of you guys out there could make something like this. So let's get into it. All right, to make this pretty simple, we're not doing anything fancy. I got a bunch of cut off rings from a project, I don't know from what, but I found them in the scrap pile inside of a toolbox here. So I got a few of them. Now, ideally, I would like to make something like this, and I've done this in the past. I got a couple things in my yard like this that I made yard art out of. Look just like this. Well, I'm missing one, and unfortunately I don't have any more of that size material, so we're gonna have to improvise a little bit. What I'm gonna do is weld that together and then weld this on here to kind of make a flower per se, or excuse me, a flux core flower, because this has got to be a manly project, right? Now, for you guys at home, if you don't have access, this looks like it might be DOM tube, but it's possible it was gas pipe. I'm not sure. You can always go to your local big box store, get some cheap gas pipe or whatever the cheapest pipe they have, even galvanized if you're brave, and just take a Sawzall with a metal cutting blade and just cut rings out of it. That would work. You know, if it's galvanized, you want to weld it outside or wear a respirator or both, because you don't want to be breathing that in. Like I said, this might be DOM tubing from like a roll cage, probably cut-offs from a roll cage. What's odd is they're deburred, so maybe I made these for this purpose a long time ago, and then like everything else I do, I never get around to finishing it. So anyways, we got our rings set up here for a rod that this little flower thing can sit on. I got this, it's a piece of stainless steel. Not really sure what I have this for, but again, hey, I found it. It's gonna make its way into this piece. Now, I'm gonna be using the flux core process just because I know a lot of you out there have that. But like I said earlier, you can use mini stick rods for this, no real issue there. So I'm gonna get the wire welder fired up, and we will start welding this. So I've been using this firepower welder quite a bit. Now this, I haven't welded anything super thin with this really yet. A buddy of mine borrowed this thing for a couple days, and I don't know, probably used it for 14 hours, he said. Used it quite a bit, said that it worked great. So anyways, the internal setting chart here I'm gonna reference. Now if this was that green Harbor Freight 125 I had, I'd know off the top of my head what to run. But looking at this chart, it's saying that 80 for a wire feed and 14 for a voltage. Oh, no, take that back. 80 and 13 and a half. So I'll power it up and let's do that. All right, so I got our rings set up, and this is kind of the theory of what I'm going to be going for right now, just to get a little bit more depth. So the first thing we want to do is weld two of these pairs together. Like I said, wire feed speed, I'm running at 80, 13.5 for voltage, so very low values. I have no idea if this is going to be in the ballpark. I could weld it down in here. I think I'm going to weld it on the face. We'll see how well that, or actually, I'll try and weld it in a crack of it. Well, it made a tack. Seems a little bit low. Yeah, it needs the heat turned up. I don't think I can break it. No, it's definitely welded, but I'm going to turn the voltage up to 14, wire feed to 90. I have no idea if that's going to be better. I would assume it is. You can see here pretty much just nasty looking tack, little cold. So let's see if I can improve that a little bit. That's better. I'm going to turn it up a little bit more. I don't see it melting together as much as I would like. I'm at 100 for the wire feed and 14.3 for the voltage. Now this is, I guess, a little bit thicker than what I thought it was. I thought it was 16 gauge, but it's thicker than that. It's 1/8, if not more. All right. Now you want to be careful here that you don't inadvertently stab yourself with the molten wire. So I'm going to hold these and try and actually it'd probably be smarter if I held it right here at the brush. All right, yep, we were off by quite a bit. I know all you guys that use values with Flux core all the time were laughing at me for the settings there being incredibly cold. So I looked up for 1/8 inch because I thought this was a lot thinner, and it's saying 17 volts, 225 inches per minute, so about double the wire feed of what we're using. Now, this did weld together, but is it strong? Yeah, for a flower it is, but not for any kind of structural stuff. So if you take a look there, just tack welded again, not the greatest. I bet it's going to run a lot better now that we have some decent values in it. Yeah, that's a ton better. You can see how it actually has like fusion in there. That's looking better. All right. So now I'm going to take, and we got to weld these together somewhat decent. And by decent, I mean to where this looks correct. Because if we weld it like this, I mean, what the hell is that? That looks terrible. So we want to get this positioned reasonably well. Alrighty, if I can pick this up and not burn myself. There we go. I'm going to do couple more tacks on the back just to hold it together, wire brush this up, and we're already halfway done. Ta-da! Clean enough for what we're doing here for right now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut off this stainless rod, and then we will weld this somehow onto there. We'll figure that out. All right, so in order to weld this, I think if we just weld it right like this, I think it'll work just fine. I mean, this isn't going on the space shuttle into outer space, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. I will up our values. I'm going to go to 18.5 and 250 and see if we can't get this to melt together a little bit. Alrighty, so that's looking pretty good, definitely strong enough for what we're doing. I'll clean this up a little bit so maybe you can see the tack welds a little bit. There's no award-winning welds on here, and that's not the point. So, alright. Very simple design. Definitely have fusion down there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this cool off, and then I'm going to wire brush it a little bit more, wipe it with acetone, and then we're going to give this thing a paint job. All right, so we are in the bowels of my shop in the back corner, and we're going to hit this with a coat of primer. Now I cleaned it up best I could, wire brushed it. Missed that up there. I'll get it off with my finger. Looking pretty good. Ground any kind of sharp edges in case the local bunny rabbits want to sue me for getting cut trying to eat this thing. I just masked off the stem of this, but we're going to hit it with a quick coat of primer, and then we're going to paint it right away. Again, this is just yard art. It's going to get rusty, and that's kind of the appeal of this, is that it's kind of grungy looking. I mean, I have one of these in my yard. I actually TIG welded and spent like 3 hours to make it perfect. And you know what? This is going to look the same. So, all right, we'll give that a little bit of time to dry. That is bright red. Wow. Well, I'd say that I'll give it another quick dusting in a few minutes, and then just let it sit in my warm shop where it can dry, where it's a lot warmer than where we're at. Cool.